And we are live. Welcome, everyone, to Transform Your Relationships Live. I'm Laura Rubinstein with the amazing and fabulous Dr. Roberta Shaler.
Good morning, Laura.
Good morning, Roberta. We have a hot topic that has to do with the productivity blues.
Yeah, and you can be feeling that in both directions. You can be feeling like, oh, I should be doing more. And then you can be feeling so exhausted from doing more. So let's talk about it from both sides of that equation and where do we find ourselves in a happy medium?
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to both. I feel like I'm busier than ever, with work, and because my work has always been virtual. And then I'm hearing all these people getting stuff done in their houses. They're cleaning out closets, they're doing and also in their businesses, they're doing projects they haven't been able to get to in their business. And I'm like, oh man, I'm just like jealous, like I really want that. And what can I do to get that? And I should be superwoman now that we have less to do, but I have more to do. So it's kind of nerve wracking. I'd love to hear where people are at. Like, are you bored? Are you overwhelmed? Are you kind of both? What's going on out there?
And do you have a big should hanging over you that somehow you've accepted the idea that you should be doing more? Like early in this situation in which we find ourselves, I responded to something on Facebook someone put out. They actually said that if you don't write a book, you don't start a business, you don't do all this, it's not that you're lacking in energy, it's lacking in discipline because you should do it. And I wrote back and said, oh no, don't be going there. Don't tell people that. That is not accurate. It's going to be different for every person. It's nothing about self discipline. It's not about not wanting to be productive. It's about response to life, and everybody's going to be different. So back off. And there were just so many
Stop
people
bullying me.
loving my response.
Yeah.
Because it is something that happens. We accept these shoulds, like somebody else knows what we should be doing, or somebody else has a judgment and we should be scurrying to make it a good judgment or a good impression. Or that now we're listening to all this stuff on Facebook about people doing things. I don't hear that so much, but we hear it. And then everybody go, oh, I could have done that. I should have done that. But basically, I couldn't even get out of bed and have a shower.
Mm,
Um, let's not be beating ourselves up. This is a difficult, difficult time. And as it extends, we're now starting to go into different expressions of a response.
yeah.
And that's important for us to take note of too.
Yeah, that should is a key word in the coaching world, at least, that don't should on yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's destructive, it's not productive, and it does lead to the productivity blues. And so I'd like to offer that I give you permission to lighten the load, right?
Yeah.
To nurture yourself. This is a time where we're all feeling intensity, right? From various things. And if you feel you shouldn't be feeling that intensity, um, that's kind of like arguing with reality. It's not healthy. There is an intensity out there. There is an intensity we're feeling in our relationships, in our work life, in our uncertainty, in our health. So it's okay to feel what you feel. I think that's a really important message, and honor that feeling and explore it. I mean, we have a great opportunity here to take the shit off and do do what is calling right now inside. Listen,
Mhm.
we have quiet, so take that time to do it. But that's not a should either. I don't want to sound like that's a should either.
No, it's a possibility. It's an option. It's one of many choices. There isn't a one size fits all response to anything. And so it's important to know who you are and how you respond to things and to acknowledge your feelings, your concerns, your joys. Maybe you're relieved. Maybe you just are saying, oh, I don't have to go anywhere. oh, all those things that I was pushing myself to do, I don't have to do. And now we've been doing it for a while. Maybe it's dawning on you that, I don't know if I'm going to go back to doing that because I feel just fine without all that. Or my business is growing without all the running around. Or my children have become much more interesting to me, or my partner has. Like one of the things I think that it could be a very good result of this is if we back off and allow ourselves to become interested in home. Many of us kind of avoid home. It's a place you practice what they practice when they're teaching you to fly, touch and go. You know, like you come in, you touch down, and off you go again. And maybe you're finding that this is a pretty good place. Kind of like those folks. Maybe getting
What
a
a
little bit
concept.
involved in cooking. Maybe having to learn a new system because I find that, having to cook all the time means that I have to pay more attention. I have to clean up more often. There's a whole lot of things I have to do. Maybe you're finding that system, that routine suits you better. That now all the time you said, well, we don't have time. We've got to get to those lessons. We've got to get here. We've got to get there. So we're running through a drive through. Well, we've solved that problem. Your children are still alive and they're eating. So maybe that was a good thing.
Yeah. I love the idea of figuring out what is working now for you and taking the breath and the observation to really feel, honor what is working. There is a notion out there that I've heard that if you put in place some new habits and explore some new things that are really in alignment, it's a good time to do that now. Like when any and if you're finding you're doing bad habits, it's a good time to take a look and see if you can shift them, because in this intensity things get more like from a brain perspective and a neurology perspective, they get more imprinted strongly. So if we approach this time, which what I'm hearing you say is consciously, like, okay, what does family mean to me? What does home mean to me? What do I want it to be? Um, if we give ourselves permission to honor our feelings during this time, I think we will be richer for it emotionally and relationship wise. And those are the things that matter most in our life. And let me know if you agree with that.
Well, I just put something in the chat there. I think it's important for us to be able to take a moment and ask ourselves, what can I acknowledge that I'm enjoying about
I love
this?
that.
Like, are we supposed to be upset? Is it supposed to be all gloom and doom? Is it supposed to be who's not doing what they ought to be doing? Are we really working hard at catching people doing something wrong? What if we just took a moment and said, well, what am I enjoying about this? What is this giving me? What can I focus on differently? And then we might find that, oh, I really always thought of, and I'll use the cooking example, but I always thought that that was such a terrible chore and all. And now I'm finding that it's time to chat with the kids or spend time with my partner or take a breath and maybe just enjoy the coffee a little longer or think about think about home, how you're creating home. Think about the sacred nature of your home. What do you do within your home that allows everybody to feel valued? How are you paying attention to that right now? How are you acknowledging that you can make eye contact with these children at any time or with your partner as opposed to a quick text? Like these are important. And then boundaries are important. I had a client say to me, both he and his partner were working at home right now. And he said, I get this feeling of love for her, and I go in and I go to her office, and she looks up and says, "Not now." What do I do? And I said, well, maybe you have to become a little more adult and put that in a text and say, just want you to know this. Love to give you a hug. Let me know when it's a good time. And honor the boundaries as opposed to, and I didn't say this to him, but as opposed to being that impulsive little child who says, "Oh, I feel this, I gotta run in and give mommy a kiss." At home, you need to have that sense of when my door is shut, I'm working. And, if somebody's dying or bleeding, please send me a text or knock 6.5 times or something that's a signal. But these are opportunities to work out differences as opposed to creating clashes.
Right.
And this is the joy. This is the joy that's possible, is saying, okay, I can honor that. Like he said, yeah, you're right. He said, I just feel this and I want to go and hug her. And I said, yeah, and that's lovely. And it's deserving of acknowledgement. And put it in a text or save it till lunchtime or do whatever works because the two of you have discussed it and decided how to do it best.
Beautiful. I love it. It's all about communication. And one of the other things about what we've got here that says, what can you acknowledge that you're enjoying now? What can you acknowledge that they're doing right? Catch them doing something right. Because you said this could be a time of making people wrong. It's really easy to go there because when we're feeling agitated, sometimes to release that energy, we make somebody else wrong. And we don't love that. What we love is the person. What we want is to feel nurtured. Let's be more nurturing. That might help a little more, right? And yes, let's catch those people in our life doing something right. Why? Because that's going to take the relationship and the energy you want in the direction you want, right?
Yes, and when we understand there's this concept, and maybe we should talk about this for a minute.
Okay.
There's this concept. Well, back up. Many times on this show, I've said that there are, in my opinion, three hallmarks of a healthy relationship: equality, reciprocity, and mutuality. And I just did a podcast on it on Save Your Sanity podcast. So people want to hear about that, go over to SaveYourSanityPodcast.com. Okay. But the thing is that there is this concept of negative reciprocity. So when someone does something you don't like, you do it back and maybe a little worse. And you're going to show them how it feels. And, you've got this whole playground mentality about it. And it's important for us to recognize that doesn't work. So it's the antithesis. Negative reciprocity is the opposite of what we're talking about when we say catch people doing something right. And I don't mean right by a judgment or some kind of moral code. I just mean catch them doing something you appreciate. Catch them doing something that makes you feel good. Give voice to it. Say, oh, and going back to my client, I said to his partner, because we were talking about it together, I said, you can say, oh, honey, that's lovely. I'll look forward to hugging you at lunchtime. That's acknowledging the relationship. It's taking care of the boundaries. She can answer in her own time. That was another piece of that problem. When he texted, he expected an answer right away. And that was still not acknowledging that she was working. So when we're catching people doing something right, we're just saying, something that makes you feel good, something you appreciate, something you would like to have more of, that you're looking for what's good as opposed to looking for what's wrong. Your mic is off.
Thank you. And I call that building a mental muscle, because if you're getting in the habit of appreciating them for things for things you appreciate about them, your brain is going to go there first or give them the benefit of the doubt the next time. So it's really something you're giving your gift to yourself too, because then you're circumventing that frustration pattern that they're doing it again. They're doing it again. No, instead, they're doing that again. That is so adorable. That is so amazing. That is so wonderful that they're sitting here with me, that they're taking time, that he texted me, that things like that. So I love this whole thing about getting over your productivity blues of the shoulds of things you want to do and start appreciating what is here and now, even in your own space, with or without the people in your life. As we take care and nurture ourselves, that'll spill over to other people. That'll spill over in our relationships. So if there's stress, it's okay. We want to be careful not to take it out on other people. And I think that's kind of the underlying message here, is that how can we take care of ourselves and enhance our relationships versus harm them at this time, right?
Yeah, because the closer proximity that you are, and the longer we're going to be close, the more opportunity we have to develop skills that enhance closeness. And if we are anxious, which many people are, then we have to acknowledge that, recognize that the other people in the house may be a bit anxious or resentful or, whatever they're feeling. It's a tough time. Kids are having a tough time. They can't go over to play, they can't have their friends in. It's just not right in their world that I should be able to actually just go and play with somebody. And so we acknowledge that there's a higher level of stress or a little higher level of sadness, or if it's prolonged depression, and that anxiety may be also heightened. So, yes, I know everybody wants to be understood, but as Stephen Covey says, seek to understand before you seek to be understood. So you can give that away. Now, not that I believe everything Stephen Covey said, but I do think that's important, as is that if we can just be that adult that delays our gratification to understand the other person as opposed to needing to be understood first, then we can be part of the solution. We can be part of increasing our closeness or our understanding or our willingness or our love. And that can be a very, very good thing for everybody. Because remember, if you're at home with kids, they're watching you. They're watching how to talk to another human. They're watching how adult relationships go. They're watching how you treat each other, how you speak to each other as a couple. They are figuring that out. The younger they are, the more they're taking in without any kind of rational linear thought. And so it's important. You are a model right now for how to manage anxiety, difference, unexpected occurrences. You are that model right now. And yes, I know it adds to your stress, but it is important to recognize that's part of the job of procreation. You brought these kids into the world to give them a model of how to be a man or a woman and how to be a man or woman in a relationship. That's what happens in a family. So ask yourself, what are my kids seeing and feeling right now that's going to teach them how to have a successful, happy, equal, reciprocal, mutual relationship? Am I doing a good job of that right now?
I even think that applies within a family of two. How are we modeling to our spouse, partner, whoever else we're living with, how to be treated? How we treat others is how we teach them to treat us. So it's like the golden rule, in a way, is like treat others the way you want to be treated. Um, and you're role modeling for other people. And I think that's what you were talking about with the texting and the not now, it's like, well, how do we teach each other how to be with each other so that we both get what we need, we both feel loved, and the boundaries are honored, and we have that relationship that flourishes beyond, instead of gets to a point of frustration.
Yeah, and here's an important thing, and I know I can almost hear the little balloons over people's head as I say this, but be willing to go first. That little balloon went, why? Why do I have to do that? Why can't they just be nice to me? Um, but be willing to go first. I mean, these things that I'm talking about and that we're talking about are things that have to do with being emotionally mature. And if you go first to say, I want to be the best representation of my values, the best representation of how I'd like to be communicated with, and how I believe is the best way for me to be communicating. If I am thoughtful and I am doing my best, not best in a worse situation. I am living in alignment with my values and my vision for life and my beliefs. Then I am that model. That's what I do all day, pandemic or not. Each one of us is that representation of ourselves. And when we get into this crucible that we're in just now with having to stay home and having rules and regulations and fears and anxieties, this is when we're going to show up as to who we really are, right? We are 24/7 in many cases with other humans that we cannot escape from the relationship, how it is, how we are, whether we have the skills to talk constructively about things, whether we can make agreements to resolve conflicts, and then always remember that other piece that your children are watching.
Children, your spouse, your partner, whoever you're with. Now, if you're alone, this is like the awesomest time to give up the should, right? Give yourself that time. You have the richness of this time to honor your feelings and reach out to people. And I have some friends who are single, and I've just noticed a more deeper connection with them, actually. So it is a beautiful time for that. And it still, we all are in this scenario. We're still dealing with our version of this scenario, and that we can make this world a better place because of who we reach out to and the role modeling we do, even over Zoom or StreamYard or the phone.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this has put the spotlight on the who are you question.
Mm.
Frequently people will ask in my groups or my membership program, they'll say, well, this happened, what should I do? And my response always is, I don't know, who are you? And they write back and say, what do you mean? And I say, well, if you're living your values, your vision for the world that works, you're living from your beliefs, how would those things inform what you're going to do? Like, there is no way you have to behave. There's no way you should behave except, don't be killing each other and climbing all over each other's values. I think that's civil. I think let's be civil. We could use a little more of that right now. But it's an opportunity. And if we look at this with a little bit more of a magnifying glass, turn up that magnification a bit and saying, am I being the human I most want to be? Am I responding to other humans and situations in the way I'd most like to do it? It's a great time to say, let me try something a little different. Maybe I'll get a different result and I'll be happier with that.
What a
And
concept.
yeah, yeah, like use this as an exploration time. Find out if you smile at your children or your partner or your person on Zoom a little more if they actually relax. I mean, find out.
And honor.
Examine what's your first thing that comes out of your mouth. Like, how are you? And then is it dump? Or is it how are you? And then tell me more? Or how are you? And we're going to have a serious talk about the economy? Or how are you? How are you feeling about your day? I mean, what's your approach to yourself and other humans?
Mm. There's something about being present in the moment with yourself so that you can be present with others. Because if you take that extra moment to really acknowledge what's going on for yourself to yourself, and then come to the table after understanding where they're at, and then evaluating that against where you're at, and then coming to some sort of a role modeled type of like, well, how can we bring us together? Because, I really think that humans want the same thing. We want more love, we want to be heard, we want to be understood, we want to be less stressed, whatever it is. So if we come from that place that, we're going to be having to do this together, then let's do it together. Instead of being our adversaries, let's be our best co-pilots.
Yes, and there are people, and they're all over the news and Facebook and everywhere, that are so deeply caught in their anger, making people wrong, having rage, being resentful. And they don't have another way to be right now that they can see clearly they could choose. And just limit your diet of watching that, right?
Very
Because
important.
yeah, because you can really get your knickers in a twist if you watch too much of that.
Yeah.
That's the experience they're having. Focus on the one you're creating.
Our reality is, if we want a peaceful reality, if we want a connected society, if we want to get through this faster, we've got to work together, find our similarities, acknowledge the things we're doing right, and work towards bringing that to us. Not, don't stress out over the negativity. Avoid it.
Yeah.
Avoid it at all costs.
Yeah, I think, I might have mentioned this in our last time together, but I think there are some iconic photographs that are being taken during this time. And they are snapshots that are going to last for a long time in history. Yes, we have photos of war or victory and things, and we all know that those become iconic, or the cover of the Woodstock album. But we're having photographs that are taken right now that are going to be iconic. I don't think those kids on that Florida beach who spoke about, I have the right to have spring break and nobody's going to take it from me, are going to be really happy with that photo in 15 years or that video. But they're going to be the face of it. Or the woman who was all squished up against a door protesting wildly about, things should open up and all. Are you going to be happy with that photograph? That's the question that I think each one of us can ask. Am I going to learn from this and be happy with my responses? And I have that opportunity to choose. Now, sure, we feel stuff. Don't get unreal. Don't pretend you don't feel it. Get some help if you need to. But this is a wonderful time for a little back off of the pressure of the way things need to be, and understanding that the way things are might be giving me a window of opportunity into how would I like to construct my life? What could I do differently that would bring me more joy? How could I enhance my home? What could I do? And also, this is because of certain factors in my life, I have had to learn this one even more. I mean, I knew it before, but really important. Do you know you can accomplish a whole lot in 15-minute increments? If you have
Yeah,
a
set an
big
egg
job,
timer, right?
yeah, if you have a big job and every time you think of it, you go, oh no, I can't do that. I wrote a book a long time ago called Pack Your Own Parachute. And in there, I talked about breaking things down into teeny tiny doable chunks. I called them the TTDCs of life, teeny tiny doable chunks. And I wrote that book a long time ago, 20 years ago. But the thing is, now is a good time to practice that. Maybe you can't clean the whole kitchen, but you can do 15 minutes worth. Maybe you can't clean the garage, but you can start. Maybe you can weed one part of the garden that you would like to see differently. Get out of the mentality of the macro and get down to the micro. I can do something towards that. Let me do that. And then maybe tomorrow I'll do something more toward that. And then you can reduce your productivity blues because you can actually see things shifting in your life. And you feel like, oh, I may not have accomplished that in an afternoon, but I accomplished that in a week.
I have done so much weeding that I can totally relate to this because I look at certain parts of the yard and I see a massive amount of weeds and I see weeds that are not easy to conquer. And I get like overwhelmed and frustrated and mad. And then I say, okay, let me just start with this one weed. And
Yeah.
then before you know it, I'm kind of addicted to weeding and I've and then I get up an hour later and I look at my work and I go, I did it. I
Yeah.
did it. Oh my God. It's
Well,
been
I
amazing.
have a relationship with that, Laura, because when the garbage man comes, I live in a complex, so I don't have a place to put my garden waste except into the garbage. So I do my weeding in small amounts so that I can get it in there, as opposed to I've got to get it all done on Sunday night because Monday morning the trash guy comes. And so, just knowing that you don't have to wait for the deadline. The other thing, of course, about being in the garden, and maybe you're enjoying this too, because I am, I'll just realize like I have to get outside. I just have to get outside. And yeah, I've got a call coming up or I've got a client or whatever, but I can go outside for 15 minutes,
Right.
wander around the yard. What could I pick up? What could I change? What could I prune? What could I do? And there you go. I got some exercise, I got some oxygen, I moved my body, and the garden looks better.
Right. Weeding has become one of my favorite forms of exercise this season, especially since we had so much rain here in San Diego,
Right.
which is unusual for Southern California. But yeah, I just have it is a great, for me, it's a therapy in a sense to go out and weed the yard. I don't know anybody else can relate, but part of, and I go through a lot of things like, well, I'm in the weeds. I shouldn't be in the weeds. Somebody else should be in the weeds. But then I'm like, nobody's going to do what I do with the weeds. Like, I don't even think you could pay somebody to do, they all want to spray some toxic thing. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. So
Right.
I got to do it. But the really cool thing is, and Lillian saying one small step, absolutely. It really is healing to know when you take that one small step, or like what you said, Roberta, is to take that 15 minutes. There's this woman who's been around on the internet since before like the internet was big, like early 2000s, the Fly Lady, and she says take 10 minutes or 15 minutes, set an egg timer, clean your sink. Do these what she calls hot spots if you want to get organized or you want to do a project, and so that often helps me just say, okay, I'm just going to take 15 minutes right now and see how far I get. And
Yeah.
then I'll have a benchmark for how far I can get with this type of project.
Yeah, I love that. And one thing that I've found worked for me, because I cook a lot, is I look at my kitchen at the end of the day and say, how would I like to wake up to this? I know I'd like to start fresh. And I find that honestly, to clean the whole kitchen, including the sink, doesn't take more than 20 minutes. Everything is taken care of, and I wake up to freshness.
Mhm.
And it's a way that I take care of myself as opposed to walking by it, which, because I'm not terribly visual, I'm not bothered by clutter or any of those things in the way that some people would be, but I just find that when I wake up to a fresh kitchen, I feel more inspired to take care of the cooking. And that's just something I learned about me. Like, in this time, that works.
There you go.
And you know, I
That's the
think
point of today's show, is do what works. Don't shit on yourself. What
yeah.
really works, be honest with yourself. Help yourself help yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And be good to yourself, be kind to yourself. I'm not suggesting, just let yourself off the hook for absolutely everything and never get out of your pajamas or your bed. But examine, what's really going on here. Is it time for a shift? Is it time for a change? Is it time for reflection or investigation? Do I need some help with something? Take a breath. Take a breath and say, what would serve me well? How would I serve myself well? How would that change what I am experiencing and the people I'm experiencing with? How could it alter my relationships for the better? And this is a good time for asking those questions. And yes, you can ask those questions in that 10-minute window. Okay, I'm going to have
Perfect.
I'm going to have my self-reflection window now.
In a 10-minute bath, even, or something. Do something nice for yourself. Take this time where you think you should be productive and take the should out of it and really drop into what's real for you. Honor that feeling, because your body is telling you what you should do. Your body is like is your like little GPS, those feelings inside. And when we honor it, then those feelings shift to where you want them to go to. They tell you how to get there. And so it's a new navigation system where I think we're talking about today.
Well, they may be able to tell you how to get there, or they may be an indication for the first time that you've been suppressing that, or you have been pretending it doesn't exist. And maybe you don't know the answer, but begin the inquiry. Like, oh,
Yes.
I have not allowed myself to feel that ever. Maybe I could, and it wouldn't be so scary. Or maybe I need to talk with someone to solve that little piece there. You know, it's a big deal.
So I love how you have forrelationshiphelp.com available for people to go to. You have 24/7 resources there. They can book an appointment with you. You can certainly go to transformtoday.com. Also, you mentioned, asking questions. The feminine power cards are a wonderful tool to start helping you ask those questions and see what comes up, because sometimes you just need to give the question some airtime. And that's what I mean by having a compass, is like those questions, the feelings are like saying something, but you may not be able to translate it right away, and that's okay.
Mhm.
It's a process. This is a journey. So allow yourself to have a journey into getting to where you want to be, or closer to that state you want to get to. There's no shoulds here. There's just exploration.
And 10 minutes with a feminine power card is a really good idea.
And there you go. All right, everyone. Thank you so much, Roberta. Another fabulous, conversation to transform your relationships. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another wonderful topic.
We will. Bye, Laura.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Thanks for being here. Okay, my mouse